Framing. This is imperative. Hello, everyone. My name is Tessa. I'm here at the Futurist Mindset Show with Reagan Rodriguez, and he's your host. He's a futurist who teaches stratosphere wealthy legacy families how to become impact investors. And hi, Reagan. How are you?
I'm doing well this afternoon. And yourself?
I'm very well, thank you. And I'm
Good.
excited because we started the 12 steps to raising funds. We're
Great.
on the tail end of that. So we are doing 9, 10, 11, and 12 today.
You sure
But
are.
we learned a lot in the first section. So if you haven't
Did
watched
we?
yes,
Yeah.
I did. I don't know about
Good,
you. You
good.
taught a lot. We'll put it that way. But if you haven't caught those videos, they are going to be linked in this show, so you can go back and see all of the steps. But
Mhm.
I'll let you kick it off with the 9, 10, 11, and 12.
Today I'm going to go over 9 because I really want to go over that and then see if we can get to 10. If not,
Oh, okay.
we'll go into it next week. Okay.
Beautiful.
So today I kind of want to go over step 9, which is framing. Okay. This is imperative because then when we talk about engaging in imagination, I talked about that last week, and the way that you do when you're raising in between 10 million to 100 million, you have to understand the frames. In any situation that I go into, I have to do the pre-frame, reframe, or deframe. The most powerful hedge fund managers, private equity professionals in the world that I have met, I noticed that they're not afraid to pre-frame. What does that mean? That means that I'm going to handle the objection, whatever that is right here, before I speak to them. Okay, so I'm going to bring up everything that a person could think of that can take away from the value that I'm offering. So before I go into, actually, before I say anything, preemptively address that venture capitalist concerns. Remember, I've mentioned this before, that a venture capitalist tends to be pessimistic because they've seen so many ventures fail. So you're going to have to consider the reasons why yours will work, right? Address these concerns before they even ask about them. I would even add, mention it in your presentation. In other words, what do you think the top 5 concerns that they may have? And then how would you overcome and address them? I'm going to recommend when you're creating your fund, you should address these concerns at the core of your investor presentation. Should also have maybe 4 or 5 backup slides that you keep at the end of your presentation if and when needed. And those are going to address those less common concerns that you guessed they may have. Let me give an example. A few years ago, I had a client that needed to raise a few million. It was something small because the lender had left him at the altar. So he came to me for a solution. I already knew he would not like my idea on the cafe fund. I also knew that this company was very conservative, but I also knew that they needed a few million. And of course, they wanted this in less than 30 days. And I knew all of this because a week before that, we had had a conference call and I picked up on some things. So let me give you an example of pre-frame. I already know that you're going to tell me that the cafe is not going to work for your type of business. And I know you're also going to say that this is risky. You'd rather have a loan, right? I also know you're going to tell me it's outside of your comfort zone. And you're also probably going to say that this isn't what we do as an organization. And you're probably also going to say that it's putting you on the spot a little bit. And you might even say that it's too far removed from the way we would ordinarily raise funds for a new development. And when you say that, I'm going to remind you that you did ask me to help you think outside the box on how to raise the funds that you need. I'm also going to remind you that obviously that you had said that you wanted, that loan thing didn't work, right? You were left at the altar. So when you tell me that it's not for you, then I'm going to remind you that you said, Reagan, we trust you to help us raise the funds that we need. You've been doing this for over 15 years. Do you see what I'm doing, Tessa?
Yeah.
I'm already telling them exactly what they're going to say before they object. Pre-framing is very important because people operate under patterns, right? We don't no longer think. If you're like me, right, you're in routine and you operating in patterns. If you're watching this, I'm going to ask you to think. I mentioned that most people operate under habits, right? They're routine, like myself. And all I'm suggesting to you is take some time to think for a few seconds. And in those seconds, you're going to know exactly how you're going to respond to things before they bring it up. If you allow that negotiation in the pre-frame, then you're not being an effective influencer to raise the capital for your construction project. So a reframe would be, I go into the conference call or that Zoom meeting and I'd say, I think for your project, we should do the cafe fund. And they say, no, 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 we don't do things like that. We're a conservative organization. This is outside of the ordinary. And then if I was to say, but you told me that you wanted to step outside of your comfort zone, now I've made the person take a stand and now I'm reframing. Sometimes you have to reframe. And here's the rules of reframe. In reframing, if rapport is established or maintained, whoever has the most certainty is going to influence the situation. So that's what pre-framing does. It allows me to then go into a reframe. And now we have an equal posture together, right? I don't want to take a superior posture. There's three postures that we take when we're raising capital for a fund: equal, a superior, or an inferior. If you are watching this, you're going to have to get rid of, I apologize for wasting your time. No. Your time is just as valuable. No more of that. Okay, that's no. You're putting yourself in an inferior posture. Why would I say that your time is valuable when I'm sharing an opportunity with you that could be the next Google or Uber? So be careful about apologizing for your time. If you're going to do that, apologize for both your time and their time, because both are valuable.
Right.
Make this a human thing. Equal posture. You're looking for an equal exchange. And be careful about going into superior posture, especially if you're talking to a leader or a family office that's being very kind to you. Do not take a superior posture, especially with someone that manages a family office. Not the way you want to do things, right? Again, just look up what the definition of a family office is. You'll see something in Investopedia. And again, a family office is very resourceful and they will work with you. Let me give another example. And the reason I'm going to give you this example is to not use this example. I'm going to slightly exaggerate the D-frame in order to prove the point to all of you that are watching this. In a D-frame, it's where I'm going to change the context. I'm going to change what we're talking about. So I do a pre-frame on the cafe fund or raising equity versus a loan. And let's assume they don't like that. They want a loan and they want the money right away. Then I'm going to do a reframe. And he says, I don't know, Reagan. A D-frame would be, I kind of thought that this wasn't what you were looking for. And I know that you want debt financing versus an equity raise. And sometimes this kind of funding is a little above some people's heads. And perhaps maybe that's you. And perhaps maybe you do have that play it safe. Look, maybe I should have thought of that before I mentioned the option, really. The type of leaders and principals of projects that we work with are willing to take chances. And they make intelligent, calculated risks. Now, you only want to use the D frame where you absolutely have to. And a lot of the times, I only use it when they're being disrespectful. And I want to make sure that I leave there with the proper posture for myself and for the next meeting that I have. I don't want to leave that situation feeling defeated in any way when that person wasn't going to do anything anyway. Now, be careful. Don't be manipulative when using this, kind of takeaway approach. This can be a very dangerous slope, so be careful. Remember, before I gave you the example, I said that I was going to exaggerate to prove the point, right? So now, let me give you a better example of deframing. Oftentimes, there's a lot of people that they'll come to me and they'll say, Reagan, I found this multi-unit apartment that's at maybe 97 or 98% capacity or 100%. I had someone last week that said that, and they said, and I want your help to help me find the capital. I need the 30 million and I need it in less than 90 days. And ultimately, my question is, what do you want to get out of this? What do you want to learn throughout this process of raising the capital for your fund? And usually they say, I need the funds now. And I say, for what reason? And they go, I got to pay my bills. I got creditors calling me. And I said, okay, so you want to be taught a particular skill from me that you can use on people to pay your bills. Is that right? And they'll say, yes, that's exactly what I said. I got Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express calling me daily. And I say, okay, hey, I get it. I've been there, really. And we're probably not the best firm or investment bank for you. The reason why you can't teach somebody how to raise 10 million or above in less than 30 days is there's a whole skill set that goes along with it. And the kind of lender that you're looking for is your bank. That's not what I do. Our goal is to help you create a fund so that in the future, you will have the funds to then acquire that existed assisted living facility or multi-unit apartment. And before we even start talking to investors or even getting you in the door with a family office, you're going to have to change around your business plan. And we need to place it in the right order. So when you considering the fact that you need the funds in less than 90 days, and you want me to teach you these skills to get high net worth investors to pay your bills? No, no, I'm not going to teach you how to be dangerous, i.e. Elizabeth Holmes, right? I don't think we're the right fit for you. I just saw something on my news feed that she's going to not have to do jail time so much. Anyhow, you have to find out what's the kind of client that you want and what's the type of customer that you don't want. I know this is hard for a lot of brokers in that project funding space or investment bankers because, look, if you're watching this, I'd like you to think about this. What kind of investors do you not want? Because the reality is, statistics show that 91, I think 0.2% of these brokers don't get a project fully funded. So with those kind of statistics, even an investment banker has the attitude that anything that sticks to a wall or that looks like it's going to stick on a wall, they're going to go after it.
Okay.
And then hope to make it stick. I instead would look for opportunities to see how you can help others versus just like what's in it for me. It is a tough conversation when I've had to tell clients, I don't want to take your money. It would be criminal for me to do that. And that type of deframing makes them want to say, whoa, wait a minute. If you won't help us create a fund, then what would you do? Now, it kind of opens up the possibilities that I was talking about on that other step, on engaging that imagination. I just told you why we wouldn't do that, and here's the reasons why. And then they would be like, okay, now I understand how you can help me. You might not be able to get me 10 million to close on this one deal, but instead you're going to help me create a fund over time. Now I've created that curiosity of imagining the possibility of what their fund could be. That is more of an analytical persuasion. You become the authority in that situation. Guys and gals, that's a better use of deframe. The first example is only in a really toxic situation. In fact, in my second example, I gave you utilization. I gave you pre-frame, and I gave you engaging in that imagination. What that equals, to me at least, or what it equals to being is an authority. And that's what people that are wanting to raise capital are looking for. They're looking for certainty, and you become that certainty. Pre-framing. Do not go where the path may lead. Go instead where there is no path and leave a trail. I think that's a quote from somebody.
It did sound great, though. If it's not, it's yours now.
Yeah, I'm not going to take the credit for it.
I don't know whose that is. Yeah. I love it, though. There's not a path already created.
Yeah. Let me give another tip that I just thought of. When you are wanting to influence even a customer on a product or somebody you're wanting to do business with together, you're going to encounter and have to overcome objections. And have these objections beforehand. How? By expecting them. Each day this week, one of the things that I've been doing is I've been presenting with the key objections and then how to overcome them. So let's assume an objection would be, hey, I'm too busy. Well, that makes it hard to even get your foot in the door in the first place. On the advertisement level, people will skim over your ad and they're not ever going to commit to reading it. So show them quickly what you're offering and why it's worth their time. The solution is to get their attention. Maybe tease them with something, promise something, use memorable messages. Give value up front. And importantly, the better that you understand who your customer is, who's that niche that you're going after, you're then going to be able to speak to their specific needs. And then the better that you're going to get at their attention if you're speaking at their needs and then getting them to consider your offer. I'm going to ask you this. If you are noticing that it seems like it's all about mindset, you notice that the first three that I went over, they mean something. And guess what? So will the last three, 10, 11, and 12. I'm going to go into utilization next week. I'm also going to add on this part to not be manipulative. Now, how do you know if you're being manipulative? Take time to think about what your motive is. That's how you're going to know. I get that question. How do I know if I'm being manipulative? I've gotten that question before. So when I mention the takeaway approach on saying that we're not for you, I am referring to when someone really is not for you. For example, I think I gave this example. I had this guy that had a lot of debt. Yet when creditors would call him, he'd give them my number. And he'd explain to them that because I'm going to help them raise 10 million, as soon as the millions would come in, Visa, MasterCard, Discover, and American Express, and then other creditors would be calling me. So I did email him. And on the subject line, Tessa, I put your creditors. And then I explained to him that I have thought long and hard about this. And he is not the type of client that I want to work with.
Wow.
Yeah. I asked him to please not try to convince me because I've already made my decision and I am not going to change my mind. Step number 10, I will go into this, is utilization because I talked about it. So the best fund managers in the world think utilization. What does that mean? Well, when I walk into a room, or rather dial into that conference call or that Zoom meeting, when I walk into any situation, I am focused more on being so in the moment, so in that state that I utilize anything and everything that comes up. If I walk into someone's office and I see sports jerseys or a picture of their favorite team, about 3-4 years ago, I was in Monterrey, Mexico, and a investor of ours had invited us to their home for dinner. He's an investor and he's become a great friend, and he invited us over for dinner. And the first thing I saw in their entertainment room were pictures, like pictures of the Dallas Cowboys. Guys, if you're watching this, your investors or your clients, they're telling you what to utilize. Mm-hmm. There were also more pictures as we were going up the stairs, like near the kitchen, pictures of his wife, his 3 daughters, and their dog. I use everything towards that ultimate outcome. That's a win-win outcome, of course. So utilization is less a science and more of a belief system. And that belief system is that I care. Also, if you make a mistake during this process or say something that you have not have said, hey, I've put my foot in my mouth before. So then bring it up and admit it. You have to utilize things that go on. You have to get to a place of vulnerability and then use it. If you're vulnerable enough to say, I'm human, and utilize that situation, make it humorous. Be vulnerable and talk about exactly why maybe you should not have done or said that. That just reminded me. A few years ago, I got a call from an old friend, and he had asked me, by the way, this was a few weeks after the pandemic. He said, how do you find the big fish on the wall? No. It was an email, just came to me. Now I remember. And the subject line said, how do I now find that big fish on the wall? I knew what he meant. His question was, in the old days, we did more face-to-face meetings. And people at their office, when I say old days, look, even before the pandemic, I think similar to you, Tessa, yeah, things changed, but more of our meetings are now virtual ones.
Right.
Yeah, just like the one we're in right now. You know, we're watching each other. We're seeing each other face to face. I think the only thing we can't do is physically like shake hands. Right?
I know. That's true. I have never shook your hand.
Yeah. So that's why when we talked about that big fish on the wall, we're talking about utilization. I want you to use and utilize anything that comes up to help create that conversation, to stimulate the conversation, to then move the opportunity along, to build trust. If we no longer can meet in person, so I can't be at your office, then how do I find what we used to call the big fish on the wall? If I was to guess, I would say for most of us, 90% of our meetings are done virtually. With me, it's about 95%. The only reason why I have face-to-face meetings is because I live in Florida. A lot of people vacation in Florida or have winter homes in Florida. And a past client might send me an email and they might say something like, hey, Reagan, I know we've never met, but you helped me a few years ago on that humanitarian project. And I thought it would be nice to meet you at your office or for us to meet for lunch. So it is rare for me. In other words, I do have face-to-face meetings, but they're not business related.
Mm-hmm.
And let me get back on topic here. So how do you find that big fish on the wall or that big trophy? That's where social media platforms like LinkedIn or Twitter will help you to kind of find what we call that big fish on the wall. People will give you clues. If you look at one of our interns, you remember this, Tessa Jordan, was able to find out that I did some tweets on Ryan Garcia. And what did he mention right away? Oh, I've been following. He said, I've been following Ryan Garcia for years, right? I don't know if he found that on Twitter from me or mentioned something on LinkedIn, but if you go to LinkedIn, you'll notice that I care about the environment. And you'll see that I care about the poor. If you have this client that shows up with a big bright yellow or orange dress, say something about it because he or she is asking you to utilize that in your interactions with them.
Mm-hmm.
They're asking for that level of significance. So I have awards or pictures of awards on my wall. I'm looking for significance. If I have friends and family all over, I'm saying utilize the connections that I have in my heart. If I have quotes of Abraham Lincoln or personal development books, then I'm telling you I'm a growth guy. Utilize that. If I have a bat in my office and swords and boxing gloves, I'm saying, hey, I need that level of, I need you to acknowledge that I'm a strong guy, right? It's there for a reason. Use it. I also would like to talk a little bit about LinkedIn and or Twitter. And when you go to their accounts, in order to get information to help build rapport. Again, you are not using manipulation. It's not about manipulating or convincing or even persuasion.
It's a relationship.
Rather, that's right, the connection of the heart. My heart connecting with your heart, like Brent Long talked about when we had him a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Let me add a real situation here, Tessa, that so that it doesn't come across, look, here's what I don't want to come across, is if I'm some kind of expert that's up here and sees others that do these things down here, but not me. No. I actually did make this mistake once, maybe twice. It was actually the former CEO of Walmart. A friend of a friend had connected me to Mike Duke. He had chose to retire in Naples, Florida, after he resigned as the CEO of Walmart. So I asked this friend of mine if she would set up the meeting for me. Since I'm in Miami, it's just a quick drive through Alligator Alley. I just drive to the other coast. And my idea was to position him as if, hey, I'm just looking for a mentor, and I would be honored to learn from the former CEO of the largest retailer in the world. So the first meeting that we had was over in North Naples, and we got along really well. And then we had another conversation, and then I thought, well, then later I'll ask for money. Look, guys, if you're watching this, it's for a reason. It's probably to learn. And if you want to learn and you want to get results, then listen to this one piece of advice that I'm giving you. You will get better results by being upfront and going through the front door versus going through the back door approach that sometimes people use. And remember, you do have to ask if you want to receive, and do so specifically. I'd like you to repeat to yourself before you speak to that big investor: clear is kind. Or another phrase to remind yourself is stand firm. Remember, the verse is ask and you shall receive, not bitch and you shall receive. So that's it. Anything you want to add, Tessa?
Oh, no, this
Anything
is great.
that you thought of? I saw you were taking down a lot of notes.
I'll always take down lots of notes. No, I think this, honestly, it really, we covered quite a bit. So if what I think is so impressive is that the way, like you said, it's a relationship, and you're teaching us ways to handle situations that otherwise might fluster you or cause you to mess up along the way, right? So you had some great ways for us to reframe, deframe, and pre-frame. There we go. I missed the pre-frame, which I made a mental note of. I need to use in some of my meetings so I can get better results.
And you're very intuitive, so you'll know what they are. It doesn't take that long. It could just be a minute, literally, or 2 minutes before 30 seconds. You just close your eyes and you'll kind of intuitively kind of know they might have this, or sometimes you may have certain fears that this will come up. Maybe that's your gut feeling telling you that. Don't ignore it. Bring it up.
I like it. That's perfect. No, I took a lot of notes and I'm going to use these. And if you're using any of the tactics, any of these lessons, these steps right now, let us know in the chat how it's going for you. We'd want to hear. And you can always find out more information about Reagan and Fifth Avenue Capital online at Fifth Avenue Capital. It's fifthaavc.com. And that, if you want to follow him, you can hit the reminder bell to get notifications when we go live. So you can learn more, because we have more steps. We have a few more to go past this. So thank you, Reagan. You always have so much information for us, and we look forward to seeing the next few soon. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. We'll see you next week. Bye.